What is going on, everybody? Week 11 Underworld Stackfest here on RotoGrinders.com, brought to you by Player Profiler. I don't think I've ever gotten that out of my mouth without stumbling over
tricky
all of that. But I am your host, Erik Beimfohr, as always, joined by these two lovely gentlemen, Matthew. That was I'm gonna pull that one back.
My
Matthew,
God, the Matthew thing on me.
Kelley, and Dario Offstein. Well, you're a Matthew based on the pre-show story you told us. That's not a Matt story. That's a Matthew story.
That was a Matthew story. I went full Matthew. I didn't change a tire. I had a flat tire, and I ended up calling a tow truck. And it was when I got to the repair shop, the guys let me have it. Let's just put it that way, in a very subtle way, because I'm about to spend some money, on premium low profile tires with these guys. But they knew exactly how to get me on the defensive.
And I'm sure you told them, like, can you guys hurry up, because I have to go talk about fantasy football in a few minutes for a living. I'm sure that really helped out with, the blue collar guys down at the repair shop.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. I made sure I told them that I had bona fides. I'm like, I used to work at a gas station where I used to change tires. It used to be my whole thing. That used to be my whole day. Back in the day, we used to have full service gas stations, just so everybody knows. It used to be a thing where you didn't pump your own gas.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people didn't pay with credit card. They paid with cash. So then you would go get change, and so that I would pump their gas, and then they would give me like $20. I remember gas was $1.24 when I was. This is how old I am. Very old. I'm dating myself once again. Gas was I remember it was $1.24. I used to be the one that had to change the price. I had the suction cup. I had the long pole with the suction cups to change the pricing, right, on the gas station / service repair shop. And so my job, I had everything. I was the tire guy. Anything tires I did, because the other guys didn't want to be bothered with it. And they're like, can you do the tire? We'll show you how to plug tires and change tires. And, there's this whole thing where there's this whole soapy thing you put around the tire and you and it's pretty cool, And so I got pretty efficient with it. So then the idea that I would actually have to tow my car in with a flat tire was just I was tail between my legs, man, going into that place. Whoa.
Well, hopefully we won't be tail between our legs after this show. Dario, I say this like most weeks, but I do plenty of research and everything like that before this show. A lot of the times I try to get my conviction play tags, or whatever we call them now in lineup HQ. I try to get like the core of my process fleshed out a little bit, but things change, injuries, whatever. But then this show helps me kind of fine tune some of these thoughts, right? You guys have some different angles to things. We build some lineups with your optimizer. I see things like the stupid Joe Mixon thing. Sometimes I ignore them, like Joe Mixon.
The optimizer was screaming at you.
Yes, and I did. I just said
every lineup,
no.
man.
Yeah, no, we don't want that. We don't want that. Little bit of bias, but this week, I'll be honest with you, I don't even know where to start. Honestly, I feel like there's a few games for sure that stick out, and we'll talk about those. But even then, they're kind of funky. You know what I mean? We'll get to the Bills-Browns game, which is funky for a lot of different reasons. But the first game I want to just go ahead and kind of dive right in and kick it to you, is this Bears-Falcons game, which, if you, from a macro perspective, you step back, you're like, man, two crappy defenses, consolidated offenses, rushing quarterbacks, Khalil Herbert is out. There's a lot. But then you also say, well, yeah, but it's going to be run, right? You know what I mean? There's not going to be, if they both throw 15 times, would anyone be surprised? And that doesn't scream tournament upside, but each play has tournament upside. How do I go about this game, which seems appealing, but also has some kind of red flags?
Yeah, no, I came across this stat, I think it was on Twitter this morning, that the Bears and the Falcons are both top 5 since 2000 in run rate. So they're both running
the year
55+% of the time in the last 22 seasons. You think about how far football has come, how much more pass heavy the league has become, and these two teams are just totally leaning into that dinosaur football that they're, having some success with. But yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, Cole Kmet has been the tight end one over the last 3 weeks. He's got 5 touchdowns in that span. So I think he's a very tempting play. Like, clearly he's got some chemistry with Fields lately. We talked about Darnell Mooney being the field stretcher for Fields stretcher, perhaps.
Ooh, he's a field stretcher.
The field stretcher. I like it.
Ooh,
But,
Dario.
I was right on the spot. But he didn't really, hit Forrest very big last week, but, he's still getting pretty solid target shares.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that he's someone that you want to kind of be continuing to mix in. But also, I think the biggest thing is Fields is getting more and more expensive in DFS now that the pricing algorithms are just catching up to the fact that he's a monster.
Good.
God.
Crank it. Get him up there.
So
That's
yeah,
how
I mean,
we're legit. We cheer for price increases.
Yeah, that way we can get more unique here.
Yeah. What do you
I think we're playing the hits, Eric. We're gonna have to play the hits again. I'm sorry. I hate to say that the name D with the P and the J. You know that guy.
Yes.
Yeah, the 3-name guy with those initials. And then the field stacks, and we're gonna do the whole thing all over. We're gonna do it all. You play the hits, man. We're gonna play the hits. There is a game though that I think Vegas has just dead. I haven't seen a game. We've talked about a couple of them and we've nailed them every time. So I'm hoping that we can stay, every other week we have one of these games. I don't understand the Bengals-Steelers line. That to me seems like a game that's going to have some points scored. So with a 40.5 total, that's the one that I want to talk about, because we talked about Mixon and last week we talked about Pickens as a potential play, and that didn't fire. Okay, it didn't fire last week, right? Oh, Mooney didn't fire last week. That's okay. It's just how our process works. We usually can just run through these games and be like, okay, throw that game out, throw that game out, throw that game out, Commanders, Texans, goodbye. Jets, Patriots, never knew you. Right? Rams, Saints, who? Right? And you just go through it. But then Bengals, Steelers, I stop like, whoa. Players I like in this game. Alert. This could go way over.
So let's talk about this one a little bit then. And then we can polish up the Bears game. But I do think this one's interesting. These, it's week 11. We say we're going to repeat some of the stuff. But what I like about this kind of a game that I've said multiple times, it a lot of the times comes into play with like Seattle or even like Broncos games and stuff where, am I expecting this to be, a 65-point shootout? Not really, with these two offenses and these two coaching staffs. But if I can get 28-27 and I know where the ball's going,
yes,
right? No Jamar Chase. I know where the ball's going. On Pittsburgh, 3 dudes outside of the backfield. Freiermuth, Pickens, Deontay. I know where the ball's going. So you don't need, when the Bills score, right? I mean, Diggs and Gabe are the priorities, but Knox can score. McKenzie can score. Singletary had 2 touchdowns, right? Hines is there now. It can be different guys in this type of a game. I do really like it because no one screams like, oh my God, this is, they're not playing the Lions or they're not playing the Texans or whatever, but I know where the football is going. And I just love that about stacks. How do you feel about this one, Dario?
I mean, I can't get the picture out of my head of TJ Watt just tormenting Joe Burrow in week 1. And TJ Watt is back from his torn pec that he suffered in that game. I think the biggest sliver of hope for the Bengals is they have changed their offense quite significantly since then. We talked about this right around the cusp of like Jamar Chase's explosion this year before he got hurt, how they shifted to a more shotgun heavy offense, and it was helping Burrow just like see the field better top to bottom, avoiding pressures. Their run game was actually improving out of the shotgun. And, obviously that led to the massive Joe Mixon game. So I think that's the narrative that, is in the Bengals' favor, but I'm still kind of worried about that ability of their offensive line to hold up against TJ Watt and the Steelers front seven.
That they just scored 42 points, bro. You really you're now worried
on the Panthers.
I know, but you're now worried about the Steelers defense? I didn't know you were going to go Steelers defense on us. I usually know where you're going with stuff. I didn't know you were going to go Steelers defense with your cold water.
I like this. We'll throw your cold water on top of his cold water.
I don't have any cold water. I have hot water. I think this is this screams
hot water,
George Pickens breakout week. Chidobe Awuzie was always one of the more athletic cornerbacks in the league. I remember when he came out, I was like, wow, he had one of those athletic profiles that really popped. And he's one of those corners that they take time. They take even longer than wide receivers oftentimes to develop. And it was in his second landing spot, boom, Chidobe Awuzie roared up and really became something special. This secondary has lost a lot of talent. And it's similar to the Ravens when they're at full strength. That defense is completely different. But when they don't have Humphrey and they don't have then it's a different matchup. So the Bengals are now not what they were in the secondary. And now they're coming off a bye week too for their offense to get things dialed. So I think this is a fun game to play. There's not going to be a lot of people playing it. There's ways to stack it. It's just, you're going to want to play some Pickens. We always do, right? We know the upside for Pickens is 100 plus yards and 2 touchdowns. But I also think that this is how many more weeks until Chase comes back? We only have how many weeks? Like the clock is ticking on T. Higgins without Chase.
Possibly next week.
Right. So this is another thing. I'm like, I gotta get my Higgins in now, man. So I want to play some Higgins. I want to play some Pickens. And you guys know me. I'm playing the hits. Like I'm gonna dabble with a little Kenny Pickett. Right.
Yeah, I'm sure the optimizer is gonna love Pickens again. Although
Pickett charge.
It was his first week without Claypool last week because Claypool was traded during their bye, and it was, I think, somewhat disappointing, at least for me, in terms of the amount of targets that Pickens was able to earn. Like I definitely had to dial him back a little bit in the projections, just in terms of what we're hoping for or reasonably expecting. He only had 4 targets on 31 routes, so that's a pretty bad target rate. Of course, it's only a 1 game sample, but that's just another thing to consider too.
It's coming off 2 bad weeks, man. 4 targets and 3 targets against Philadelphia. But it's been a challenging last couple games with cornerback matchups. You're going against Slay, you're going against Lattimore, you're going against Xavier Howard the week before that, Buffalo the week before that. So this offense has had, look at the front 7 of Tampa's in there. I mean, it's been a challenge. So no one's allowed to be surprised when Pickens finally pick. This is the week that you pull the lever and all the coins start coming out of the machine.
Does this sound? This maybe sounds crazy because it felt crazy when it was going through my head. I almost feel more confident in the Steelers side of things.
Yes,
because they're cheaper, right? T. Higgins is 7,100. George Pickens is 5,200. They have a tight end who has we haven't discussed yet, has been a volume monster and is a pretty good football player himself. And then, if people want to go back, Deontay is the redacted play of the week. Every single week is like, well, yeah, you got your 10 targets and 6 DraftKings points every week. Oh, shucks, Sklansky bucks. But I do feel more confident in that. And the Pickens thing is fascinating to me because his price didn't change. He's still in the same situation of no Claypool. He actually got those Claypool BS rush, right? He got a rushing touchdown, was how he got in the end zone. He got a little bit of the gadgety stuff. Yes. And because like what Dario said, I love the phrase, like, aren't you worried? Aren't you worried that he only got 4 targets? Yes, of course. Of course I am. But last week at this price, in a worse spot or at maybe the similar, right? However you want to call it, he was popular. Like people were like playing George Pickens in cash games. And now we're not going to play him at all against Eli Apple. Again, what I'm you know what I mean?
Yes. Yes, I know what you mean. Yes.
I didn't think we'd be starting the show with this game, but you guys have definitely, you've persuaded me just a little bit.
I just think it's
Pickett's the same price as Heineke and Andy Dalton. He has a 2 rushing touchdown game so far this season. He has 300-yard performances passing. Justin Fields can't say that. Right? Justin Fields can give you the 2 rushing touchdowns like Pickett can. He's never put up 300 yards passing. And I'm not saying, right? But
I got a dynasty trade for you, Matt.
When it clicks with these young quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And at 5,300, I'm willing to dabble a little bit. Pickett, the pick stack, right? Just that pick stack alone can save you a lot, and you can do whatever you want, skinny stacking other games around it. But I also like Freiermuth, and I looked at the ownership on RotoGrinders for T. Higgins, and it was negative. So we got to talk. I think we got to talk to Jamino about this.
I got it up here.
I don't know how this happened, but somehow less than 0 people are playing Higgins this week.
It looks like maybe there was a little bug in the system there. I have him here on DraftKings at 15.6.
Oh, really?
% owned. So maybe there was an update there that happened.
There's a bug in the system. Okay, well,
while you were
in
the tow truck.
That we'll fix that. We'll fix. But still, okay. So he is popular.
Yeah, right.
He's
but
really
I find it
popular.
Interesting. Mixon is up there too, and I've clearly proven that I'm a Mixon hater, considering I didn't play him in the one spot you should have played him all year, and every sign was telling you to do so. But I feel like I prefer the pass game on both sides here. This doesn't scream to me, right? Now, how many touchdowns and stuff he scored was pretty crazy. But if you go back and say, yeah, against the Panthers, Joe Mixon has a big game, I'm like, makes sense. Sounds like a totally right Mixon spot. This doesn't feel like that to me. This feels more like the Higgins Boyd without Chase.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a road game too, right? So it's a road game. It's not that tends to favor the passing game. Usually the big nuclear performances come at home for these running backs. So yeah, I think the run back options are clear. I love Higgins this week. I thought there was low ownership. I was completely wrong.
What about Boyd then? Is he that big of a drop off then? Because I mean, look, 3% Tyler Boyd and 16% T. Higgins is a pretty big gap.
Well, Tyler Boyd can have big weeks too. Tyler Boyd has some nice like agility. He has some of those things where he's not necessarily going to give you 190 yards as like a potential upside, but the 110 yards on 9 receptions, 1 or 2 touchdowns, the Amon-Ra St. Brown ceiling is absolutely there for Tyler Boyd. Sure. Yes. I'm sorry, Dario. I love this game. I love it.
Yeah,
I'm not sorry.
I'm looking at Joe Burrow in his 4 career games against the Steelers right now.
Oh, no.
And he's averaged only 6.8 yards per attempt, 1.8 touchdowns per game, and he's been sacked 3.3 times per game.
Oh, that's it. I mean, the many times he gets sacked, 3, that's nothing. I remember the original Joe Burrow games of feeling like, I'm building it up in my head, but it felt like he was getting sacked like 8 times.
Yeah, he got sacked 7 times in week 1 of this year, so that's doing a lot of the heavy lifting.
28 degrees, sunny, 10 to 15 mile an hour winds. It's going to be a gorgeous day for football in Pittsburgh. There's going to be points scored, my friends.
I do like it. I like it. I think I would probably kind of stand in between the middle of you two, where I can tell Dario doesn't like it quite as much.
Dario hates it. He has the right. This guy is by the book, right? And I normally, I'm right there. But I came out of the gate with a zig here. I know. I get it. It happens.
No, I do like it, though. I think, as you said, there's enough salary savings in this game. It can fill tight end on either side. You have clear run backs. If you don't want to make this your core game stack, and I said, that's fine. Play T. Higgins with Pat Freiermuth or T. Higgins and George Pickens and accomplish a very similar goal. I think this game you can definitely stack it, but I also think our secondary stacks that we talk through all the time, it's a pretty good game for that too, because of how consolidated it is on both sides.
It's a great skinny stacking game to fill in rosters. Absolutely. You could even play just a single Pickens or a single Boyd, or I could clearly from the ownership we're seeing people are playing a lot of just Higgins by himself.
100%. I mean, there's nobody. So Freiermuth gets to almost 10%, and I don't see he's not going to be a guy that gets steamed, right? We might get Isaiah Likely again. He would be the guy that gets steamed. Jerry Jeudy's probably going to be out, so Dulcich will get his 20% ownership that he always gets and 6 fantasy points. And
is this a way that you can sports bet? Is this a way that you could actually say, hey, look at the total raw aggregate ownership in this game, right? And you could have some thresholds where like, hey, if I see the raw aggregate ownership in this game reaching X%, then that's probably an overbet, because the fantasy community and the wisdom of the crowds of the fantasy community is saying something different than Vegas is saying about this game total.
Yeah, if I would say there has to be some kind of factor of pricing, right?
Of course,
but I think that this game is not like so significantly underpriced that that would be the only thing is like, oh, so and so's out, so the if the market fits the price of all the guys, right, which I think they do in this game, and the aggregate ownership then, like you said, is saying all our DFS projections are saying we need to be on guys in this game. Well, then clearly we think that there's going to be points. I mean, there's
got to be something to it, because almost every week we come here, and if there's a 40-point total, we're putting it in the dustbin. Right? Every time, bro. This is like the first week in 12 weeks. And we're like, oh, 40-point total. I'm in, baby.
Let's polish up. Also, I do want to polish up the Bears game, and then move on to what I would call the most notable game of the week. If you were, Dario, to build out some kind of game stack in that Bears-Falcons game, where would you start? Justin Fields, I assume, but like, can you play Mariota, Pitts, London, Mooney versus Kmet versus Claypool? How are you navigating kind of those decisions?
I think that this might be the week to, I mean, the ownership is a little bit higher than you'd like it to be, but this could be the week to go back to Kyle Pitts. He's just gotten so cheap, and the Bears' pass defense is not very good. I think I'm seeing second worst in EPA per play on opposing dropbacks. So even though the Falcons might not throw it very much, I think that Kyle Pitts, we know that he's got the upside on a given play, and the Bears defense in the pass game is just bad enough that we can hope that Marcus Mariota can actually throw a ball within his zip code like 3 times in this game, and that he can make something big out of it. I think that if you look at just his opportunity stats over the last 4 weeks, he's been absolutely on a tear. He's been just 9 targets, 7 targets, 8 targets, in games where Mariota has like 20, 25 pass attempts. He leads all tight ends in air yards. I just think that it's only a matter of time before Kyle Pitts like really pops, and this is a spot where he could very much do so.
I mean, Mariota has not thrown it more. He threw it 30 times last week. That was the most in the last month. He had Kyle Pitts had 5 targets a month ago when he threw it 13 times. Kyle Pitts had 5 targets, then 9 targets out of 28 passes, 8 targets out of 23 passes, 7, so it's easy to be like, oh my God, look at this target share. And it doesn't matter if you only throw it 23 times, but that's also the point of, well, what if we get 30? Like, give me 30 passes, right? I'm not asking for a Chiefs game. I'm asking for 30 pass attempts. That's not that ridiculous, right? Justin Fields, please God, go score some points for us. And then you get, 30 Mariota passes. And I do think it could be a Kyle Pitts week. What do you think, Matt?
Trust the process. Go Pitts.
It's a high total game, and the Falcons are still favored at home. Vegas finally respects the Bears offense, and clearly they think that these teams are going to be able to push each other somewhat. So I think that, Pitts is probably far and away my favorite run back on a field stack if we're talking about game stacking.
I mean, Pitts is essentially, by all the metrics, Pitts is Mark Andrews.
Yeah.
Like, if Player Profiler were creating a composite player called Tight End X, and we just jumbled the stats, right? We did a little mix. It would just every time, whether it's Pitt's stats or Andrew's stats, it would be the same player every time. Like, it would have a Ravens helmet. It would have like Falcon shoulder pads. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, except with a 20 hundredths of a 0.2 seconds faster of a 40 time. Like,
yeah, he's a wide receiver. He runs a 40. He's a freak.
Yeah, I'm talking about the production stats, the opportunity like, here's how crazy it is. All the advanced opportunity metrics, they're 1-2 all across the board. It's either Andrews number 1, Pitts 2, or Pitts number 1, Andrews 2. Go down the board, right? It's not even Kelley, right? Kelsey's scoring fantasy points for other reasons, right? He's scoring an incredible amount of touchdowns and, just raw target volume, right? Because the offense he operates in, but all the rate stats in these lower volume offenses controlled by the mobile quarterbacks, the rate stats all favor Andrews and Pitts. So if somehow, some way, these offenses open up and then we do get into a shootout somehow, I mean, it's going to be nuclear. It's going to be this is the week, man. When the pricing was up on Pitts and these games were, low totaled, we talked about it. It was like, you don't have to be a hero, right? And go Pitts this week. Wait, this is the week where it's like, okay, now the moon and the stars are aligning. Now he has the same metrics as Andrews. He's in one of the signature games we want to play. He's the most versatile run back or stacking option of the week, because we've already talked about the inverted field stacks where you stack fields with opposing receivers.
Mm-hmm.
So a Fields Pitt stack is perfectly fine. It may be preferred. I love Mooney. I think there's going to be a Mooney week. Why not this week? Is Terrell going to play?
Questionable.
Okay, he's questionable.
That's all we got. Yeah.
So that's gonna impact. That should impact ownership. If Terrell doesn't play, more on Mooney. If Terrell plays, more on Kmet. But Kmet's going to be a little bit lesser owned because I actually like the inverted stacking. It's treated us so well this year. Invert stacking Fields. So just go back to it, right? I would if this is the week Pitts goes off, I would feel really bad because everything was like all green lights down the drag racer.
And because he's not gonna be it's different but kind of similar to the Pickens talk, where it's like everybody's been excited about this guy all year. Like, he's the young, superstar player that everybody's been wanting to click. And then you get something opens up for Pickens, right? Kyle Pitts has no target competition, blah, 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 blah. But then it just doesn't work for whatever reason, for whatever extended period of time, it just doesn't work. Their price goes down, but the ownership goes down with it too, because everybody sees that. Everybody sees, oh my God, the Falcons, Mariota stinks. They're only going to throw it 20 times. I can't do the Kyle Pitts thing again. And so if this was week 1, Kyle Pitts would be like 35% owned or something. Now, we obviously need to adjust as we have more data and everything, but we're going to reach a point now where at the price, the matchup, the talent, opportunity, all of that is coming together, and the ownership isn't necessarily reflecting it, right? He's not going to be 2%, but again, even like a month ago, he would have been higher owned than this, in my opinion. And there's probably more reason to play him now than there was a month ago.
Yeah, every week when I do the projections, I do, just like look at all the kind of opportunity stats for every offense. And Kyle Pitts has just been absolutely popping off the page for the last 3-4 weeks. I think it's really only a matter of time before he has, some crazy 150-yard 2-touchdown game.
God, let it be this week.
It's screaming at us this week, unlike past weeks where it was kind of like, hey, it's Pitts, we should get excited. And I can't get there.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like, no. Come on.
The other thing to put a bow on Pitts, clearly you guys know I like to talk about Kyle Pitts. That's my guy. But those other weeks, including last week, the last multiple weeks, right? We have been getting Waller out, Dulcich comes back and he's cheap. I'm trying to think of just some other guys that we had down there. Harrison Bryant last week, which, by the way, shout out to Harrison Bryant for a good game. Like all these guys, right? We're constantly talking about like 3K tight ends or below. We were talking about Stone Min $2,500 tight ends, 3K Foster Moreau, all that kind of stuff. All those guys are getting closer and closer and closer to Kyle Pitts pricing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now it was like you were saving like 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 off of Kyle Pitts onto these other tight ends. Now, I mean, Dulcich is $600 less. Schultz is the same price. Freiermuth is the same price. Moreau is $700, right? Higbee. Like I can't. I know. I understand volume projections. Trust me. I cannot, in good faith, play Tyler Higbee on an offense without Cooper Kupp over Kyle Pitts at basically the same price. I mean, that's insanity to me. So
really wacky.
All these guys have gotten to the point where it's like, well, now I'm not saving it. Like, okay, I saved $700. Who gives a shit about $700? Just give me Kyle Pitts. Last thing, we have to talk about David Montgomery. Khalil Herbert is out. Matchup is good. How much? Can we play Kyle Pitts with David Montgomery, right? Forego the field side of the Bears, go to Montgomery with the Pitts or something like that.
Matt's face.
I guess.
I know. We have to talk.
I guess
we have to talk about him. He's 6K without Herbert.
Yeah, it's 6. Yes, of course you're gonna play some Herbert. Yes, okay. No Herbert. Play some Montgomery. Go ahead.
You want to see?
Yeah, you're playing this game, man. We're playing this game.
He's
not Mixon. Right? I mean, he's not. Mixon was a way more exciting option a couple weeks ago when he absolutely went nuclear. He can't do what Mixon does. He's not as explosive as Mixon. But could he be 2 touchdowns, a bunch of catches out of the backfield, big 30-point game that way? Yeah. Yeah, especially if he gets that 100-yard bonus. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you need the volume, the bonus, and it for sure a touchdown.
Oh, well, yeah, at least one touchdown. Yeah.
Because they're just not going to throw enough to, sometimes you can get the 6K wide running back where it's like, oh, he got the bonus and he caught 6 balls for 50 yards or whatever, and you're like, oh, I got 20 points, I'm fine. He ain't gonna do that for you, so you're gonna need the hundo and a bonus or 80 and 2 or something like that. But I struggle with those guys so much because he's definitely gonna get played. There's not a lot of
but I mean, we there's games where he's had 136 total yards and put up 15 fantasy points.
Mm-hmm. Look at these. I know Herbert's been in and all that kind of stuff, but like this feels worse than Mixon to me. Now it's
way worse than Mixon. If Mixon was giving you the shivers a couple weeks ago, this has to be giving you like a fever. Right?
You guys, wait, hold on. You're not excited for a guy who has averaged 3.8 yards per carry this season and last?
In a game that's gonna have the fewest plays, the clock is literally never gonna stop in this game.
I get it. Like we rarely ever talk about full fades, but at 15% ownership, what do you do? I mean,
it'll be.
You're gonna mix him in. You're gonna mix him in like 5% of your Falcons, Bears stacks, and do not play him. Well, are you? I mean, yeah, you're going to have some skinny stacks. You're going to have some Montgomery Pitts skinny stacks in your portfolio, and that's probably going to be 3 to 5%. And just call it a day. Call it a day with him.
Yeah, I think one thing to keep in mind is like we know that Khalil Herbert, it has taken Khalil Herbert being literally one of the best running backs in the NFL on a per touch basis to get this coaching staff to like start taking touches away from David Montgomery. So I think that if we know anything about this coaching staff, it could be that they'll just still hammer him into the ground despite his known inefficiencies. And I think that's the biggest reason why you have to play him at least a little bit, just because he's gotten up until, his injury this year, he was still getting incredibly like full on starter snap shares, like close to bell cow usage, even though we all knew that Herbert was better. So I think that there's a good chance we see a return to something like that.
You will, but he's had some high snap shares and high opportunity shares this year and not delivered. So, question for Eric: what does his ownership have to be before you would just say no Montgomery, full fade? Is it over 20, 25?
See, I tend to think, no, Jamino, we love you. I don't agree with these projections that I'm seeing right here. I find it hard to believe that he's not the highest owned running back. I was
expecting him to be, but I also didn't expect Higgins to be as high owned as he is. So I take the percentages what they are, face value. I think we see this creep up more towards that 20 range, and I guess a little bit of a cop out answer would be, so if we do like what we talked about kind of at the top of the show, right? Let's play. Can you hear me? I was breaking up. Sound great.
Okay, good. Let's play Kenny Pickett to George Pickens, right? And maybe Freiermuth, or I guess in this example, I would want to keep the tight end for Pitts. But you know what I mean? I'm playing Burrow to Higgins and Boyd with a Pickens bring back as my stack. Like, I'm not really worried about David Montgomery's. And then if I want to play Montgomery with Pitts in that lineup or something, I can do that. But if I start jamming, like, let's just go by ownership here. I start jamming Amon-Ra.
Yeah, Burrow's outside the top 10 ownership, so you're going to be fine if you play Burrow stacks. You're not going to have to worry about any kind of ownership
play
issues.
Sutton, right? I think Sutton is going to be extremely popular. Judy, again, did not practice today, so I assume that he's going to be out. You know, he literally just got ruled out the moment the fantasy gods were looking down on us. Sutton is out. Or Sutton is going to be super chalky. Amon-Ra is going to be super chalky, right? These guys, CD is going to be popular. You start playing the really popular like wide receivers, and I got 20+% Montgomery. I absolutely cannot do it. But if you attack a game like some of these other games, I'm comfortable with David Montgomery. So, but he's a very strategic piece. Some of these other guys, that we talk about all the time, Josh Reynolds, Khalif Freeman, DPJ, all these types of plays. Harrison Bryant last week. It's like, really, ownership doesn't matter. But Montgomery is a very, very sensitive play to me, like super, super sensitive. I prefer, just right now, like Fields to Mooney with Pitts feels more like a appropriate tournament play to me than Montgomery.
Well, easily. Yeah,
or Mariota, or if you need, if you need the money to go get your T. Higgins or whatever.
Mariota? Are we?
That's my last question. Can we play Mariota?
No, right, Dario? No.
Yeah, I wouldn't be particularly inclined to play Mariota. It's interesting because the Falcons' backfield is just so muddy that usually in a game like this where we know both of these offenses want to pound the rock, we could say play Patterson and play Montgomery if you really feel like it. But this Falcons backfield is just so murky that even playing CPAT, and you're not going to trust Algier or Huntley, but they're all going to like eat away at each other's upside. It's kind of really annoying. But
Pickett has more upside. He does.
Oh, then Mariota.
Then Mariota. That's totally fair. Pickett's been running more.
Oh yeah, Kenny Pickett.
Pickett's been running more than I
Pickett has more spike week potential for sure.
Right. And then
I'll go to war over that take.
I support it. No pushback.
And I think, spike week potential is also the best argument against Montgomery, right? Like when you want to play a chalky running back, it's because it's Tony Pollard and he can get you 150 yards on 3 touchdowns. Yep. Like David Montgomery,
ETN.
Does he really have that in his range of outcomes? I don't think the chances are nearly as high.
Well, he physically can't break away on a run because he runs a 4.8 40 or whatever. You know what I mean? The D
he's had
lineman
lower body injuries, and he's just been bad.
Yeah. So
that's another thing that makes him kind of like bad chalk, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's just I will say, to like Jamino's credit and the ownership projections and everything, David Montgomery is a very polarizing guy in the whole community. You will get a lot of content out there that is like, you can't play David Montgomery chalk. You can't play David Montgomery chalk. And then that legitimately is a lot of what keeps his ownership in check.
That explains the 15%. Yeah, he seems palatable at 15% on, for skinny stacking with Pitts. I'll sign off on that.
Yeah. So anyway, I think it's a very fascinating game with lots of really good plays, but then also like I said, if there were 30 total passes in this game, would I be surprised? Not really. Not really. And the game was over in an hour and 45 minutes or whatever. Like I really wouldn't be that surprised. Let's get to, we're 40 minutes in and we're just now hitting on what could have been the Snow Bowl, but now are the Bills going to get to Detroit? I can't figure out what's going on with this whole Snowmageddon situation in Buffalo this weekend, but obviously the game has been moved to Detroit. I'm under the assumption, as is I assume everybody, that the Bills are going to be able to get out of Buffalo and get to Detroit.
You mean the fans or the team?
The team. There's a no travel order, and they're like the Bills currently right now cannot get out of Buffalo. I don't know why they didn't leave yesterday, but
hey, I have a question. Did Kenneth Walker fly to Germany without a passport?
Yeah, yes, that's a good point. That's a great point.
They'll make it.
Yeah, that is a really good point. The NFL trumps all world laws and like logic laws. Snow? What is snow? The NFL makes the
treaties.
Travel go. Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
They'll just put 3 snowmobiles in front of all the team buses and like drive through the storm.
Oh my god, snowmobile! Wow, look at you. Meanwhile, Dario's from California. He doesn't realize that you need packed snow to actually drive a snowmobile. He thinks on the first snow of the year you could drive a snowmobile. He's so cute, the California kid.
If you've never seen snow, I mean, I don't expect him to.
He thinks a snowmobile is just like any snow.
You can't just clear any snow.
I love it. I love it. It's very cute.
Last week it was on, I think, Wednesday. It was 80 degrees here. I was outside in shorts and a t-shirt, absolutely loving life. On Friday night, it snowed almost a foot. Like 2 days later, we got a foot of snow from 80 degrees. I don't know what's going on with this. But anyway, to the Bills game. Clearly, the move to Detroit makes this, for the purpose of this show, kind of wheels up on this game. You put Josh Allen and that full strength offense basically in a dome in Detroit against a bad Browns defense, particularly bad Browns pass defense. And the only thing that I really kind of not struggle with on this game stack, but is a prohibiting factor, is just price, right? It's just Josh Allen's price, Stephon Diggs' price, a little bit of Gabe Davis price, Chubb price, Amari price, right? And we'll get to DPJ, of course. But it's just kind of how do we make this thing fit? But Dario, kick us off, and then we can start to build some teams once we talk it through.
Yeah, I think that, like you said, the biggest thing is what can you afford to do with the rest of your lineup once you have your Josh Allen double stack in place? Because I think you want to play him with Diggs and Davis, or if you're getting unique, Diggs and Knox, Davis and Knox. I think he's the mix in. And yeah, it's just like absolutely wheels up, like you said. I want to apologize for my misinformation last week. I was looking at a chart and I misread it when I said that the Browns had a bad pass defense and a good run defense. It is in fact the other way around, and their run defense is horrendous. But the Bills aren't exactly the team that's going to be in position to punish them for that. Like we've seen, Devin Singletary is like their best running back, but he's barely above average, if that. Probably average is the way to put it. And then they haven't.
When I think of average running back, I think of him.
Correct.
Yeah, and then why haven't they utilized Nyheim Hines? You guys know, like, what is up with that? They're like, oh yeah, here we'll trade for you just to give you 8 snaps each game. I don't know what's up with that. And I think they've already had their bye, so I don't know when they're planning on integrating him in the offense. But
Can't play him.
Yeah, So I don't think you can play any of the Bills running backs. If anything, maybe that means a big game for Josh Allen on the ground. We know that he's been kind of more errant throwing the ball these last few weeks than he has been for like the last calendar year. So this could actually be a big game for Josh Allen on the ground. But either like you're playing Josh Allen if you're playing this game, regardless.
Yes.
Okay. Talk about Talk about your boy who left us hanging with 99 yards last week. By the way.
I mean, that was beautiful to me. I don't even care. I'm all about the next week. Like, you keep his price in check. Don't let him score touchdowns. Don't let him get 100-yard bonuses. Like, we'll just punt it to the next week and the next. He's so cool. Such a cool guy, like he's got the hyphenated name.
Cool name. Yep, cool name.
Mm-hmm. And he's so efficient with downfield passes, like getting all these air yards. And Amari Cooper is so not cool. Like, it's like, I love this analysis analytics with the player profiler. Amari Cooper, not cool, man.
And
DPJ, super cool.
I mean, if hyphenated name, that's like a function in your spreadsheet, right? It's like if hyphenated name boost, exposure by,
except when it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my God, he's the reverse. He's the exception that proves the rule.
But I do want to ask about DPJ and kind of all these, like, how do we, Dario outlined it perfectly. I'm not playing Jacoby Brissett. We talked about him last week. That was fine. This week, whole new week, not interested.
Nope.
How do we go about the Brown side, though? Because theoretically, Chubb has the ideal matchup. The Bills are a good defense all around, but if we're going to get after them a little bit, Nick Chubb's probably the way that not only that they can do it, but they want to do it, right? Mm-hmm. That Jacoby Brissett is not going to go in, to Detroit, and the Browns are like, all right, baby, go out, duel Josh Allen, and the Bills. They're going to think it's Nick Chubb. Will they be able to ride him? I don't know, but he's theoretically the option for them, but that also kind of doesn't fit very well with the Josh Allen stacks, right? And so how do we go about this when the DPJs and Amaris and David Njoku is back? He will play this week. How do we go about the Brown side?
Yeah, I think so Greg Rousseau and Tremaine Edmonds have both been ruled out already for the Buffalo defense. They're very good against the pass. They're pretty close to league average against the run. So I think, we talked about this stack being expensive already on the Bills side, and now here we are telling people Nick Chubb is the way to go on the run back. Yeah. But I think that is kind of how I'm reading this. Speaking of Amari Cooper, I think it's kind of funny. People are always talking about his home and away splits. Well, now he's got a neutral site game in Detroit, which is closer to Cleveland than it is to Buffalo, I think. Yeah. Pretty kind of half between, maybe.
This is tricky. This is a tricky thing for the long tail things that don't matter based purely on randomness, where people are seeing shapes in the clouds, but let's talk about it on every podcast regardless. Yes. I'm shocked. I can't believe we are not on the same page. That's because I had the flat tire. You and I didn't talk before the show. I think that's what's going on. Usually we have a little prep. Clearly the lack of prep is showing. I thought for sure I would have bet anything you were going to talk about Kareem Hunt. I'm shocked.
Yeah,
I think you're spooked by the 34% snap share and only the 7 routes last week.
Yeah, I have to admit I am.
I'm not.
It was the game strip that I've been asking for Kareem Hunt, and I don't know. Maybe this is when it bites me because I finally get off of him, but it's just season low snap share, season low in routes run.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do it. I can't do it again.
Season low salary.
That's true. But it is tough when that game, the whole thesis of the Kareem Hunt play was what happened in that game last week. And then it goes the opposite way from his usage. It is a little tougher than I would have expected.
I know, but that's what every fantasy gamer, every DFS grinder is going to be looking at the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And NFL coaches don't care. They do crazy, weird, arbitrary stuff with their players every week, especially when they're good. They usually play them.
Yeah, I mean, last week Chubb had 4 targets and Hunt had 1. So that's concerning. Chubb also ran more routes, 14 to Hunt 7. So seems like that split, maybe is it trending in the wrong direction? Maybe it's just Hunt happened to be on the field the wrong plays.
If that Miami game were not on the schedule, this would be the game. This would be a Hunt game. This is the game we're hunting for Hunt, right? Not to mention all the scenarios where Nick Chubb misses some time in the game, right? And then Hunt comes in and goes nuts. You know, this is tournament DFS we're talking about here.
It's tough. It's true. It's definitely tough.
I mean, good luck finding a cheaper running back. Is there a cheaper running back you prefer in a game we like?
Not in a game. No. Not in a game we like. Both of the Washington running backs are cheap against Houston.
Correct.
David Montgomery.
Hunt is cheaper than both of the Washington running backs on DraftKings at least.
Yep. There's not.
Jalen Warren could be your cheaper than Hunt play.
But if that's not a good indicator,
how many Bengals and Steelers can we play?
Apparently, all of them.
We're just stacking them up, man.
That wasn't even the first game we were going to talk about.
I know. It's like, well, we like this Steeler too.
But running back is pretty brutal, and
to the
point of okay, like let's walk through it. We'll start to walk through some teams. Dario will segue into this. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs with a bring back. Where you want to put Gabe in there too? Like, you tell me where you're saving money, and then, okay, so you run that equation. You're like, well, I got to save money somewhere, and it has to be at running back, basically. How do I get that with some correlation? Well, there is a cheap running back on the Browns, so
he is good. He has big boom upside, 30-point upside, Pollard-esque upside in the event of a Chubb injury in the first quarter. I'm not just riding on that. There is also game plan where they end up playing him his customary 50% snap share. Remember, that's what he was getting before last week. 48, 50, 52, 51, 40, 56. Right? It's like, and he's running, 15 to 20 routes. If you just assume last week was an anomaly and he's not hurt, or they haven't decided suddenly that like Chubb is this great route runner, this great passing game running back, and that the world is more of the large sample that we saw before last week, then Hunt becomes interesting.
Yep. I agree. Montgomery and Mixon in the first run is making my stomach turn. But but this is what happens, right? It's actually an excellent example of, okay, you want the Allen double stack. show me how you're going to make it work.
Right. You get Grant Calcaterra,
who is interesting at least.
I think so too. When we get around to talking about the Eagles game, if we ever get there, you are
going to talk about that game.
Yes. Let's run through some of the. I do want to see what some of the Allen stacks look like though, because I think it's a really helpful exercise. And
4.1K Nico Collins is going to make it into lineups. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. So here we get some different running backs, Cook and
here we go.
Carter.
That's interesting.
I think this trio of Collins, Calcaterra, and DPJ seems to be the optimizer's favorite affordable plays around this stack.
Well, what you're doing is, this is what happens. Like, this is what Eric was talking about. When you force an Allen and a Diggs and a Gabe Davis down the lineup genius's throat, it's going to be throwing its hands up in the air going, bro, I'm choking here. I'm choking on salary. What are you going to do? I got to find a $2,500 tight end.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think this is, proving your point. There's Kareem Hunt.
There we go. What is this? The third or fourth lineup?
It's the fifth best lineup.
Well, because it was running through its DPJ run backs, of course.
Yeah.
And then you sub in Garrett Wilson instead. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, you're seeing all the salary savers too. That's the beauty. You go through a few lineups, you see all the salary savers.
Browns defense.
And you can absolutely,
that's actually a very galaxy brain stack, right? You play the Browns defense against Josh Allen, get the turnovers, but then it still gets high scoring.
Dude, I can't. This is how some of these machine learning things where it knows to go hunt Browns defense is really amazing. Amazing.
But yeah, I guess we'll take out Diggs. We'll lock in Davis and then see who kind of have some flexibility. We want to double stack Allen, but we'll see if you probably pick up some Knox, pick up some.
Why are we double stacking Allen? He's not the type of quarterback we typically double stack.
Well, we can if you're just saying.
Oh, I know you can, but I'm just like, that's not. When I think of a double stack, I'm thinking like the Cousins lineups, right? Like those types of lineups, like Mahomes.
I think you're not wrong in that Allen can
Burrow.
get there on a single stack because of his rushing ability, but I think that from the like pass rate over expectation standpoint and the Bills play volume standpoint, like they're gonna chuck the ball. And usually when Allen gets there, he brings at least two of his weapons with him. Like, I mean, thinking back to that Chiefs game where it was Gabe Davis and Diggs and Knox got the touchdown to seal it off. Like, I think that offense just has enough upside to where like you want two of those weapons that are going to be attached to his cannon arm.
I like the question I asked. I thought it was a very fair question. And then what you ended up saying was the reason why Josh Allen's the number one quarterback in fantasy.
Yes.
Yeah.
and
the answer.
And that you can
like, yes, he's similar to Hurts, but he has all these things going on that
like,
even Hurts
he's
Hurts.
He's Hurts Mahomes hybrid.
Yes, that's the thing.
He can do the Hurts thing, 100 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns.
When the elbow is healthy.
Or he can that is a small concern. Or he can do the 450 passing yards.
Yes.
Like it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So I think
he's a crazy person. You're right. Okay, now
but you can do either. I think to that point, I kind of want to see this.
And that's
run
what we can do with the slider. We can go 1 to 1 or 2.
We'll set it at 1 to 2. So we're saying at least definitely Gabe Davis, which I think I like that, and then we can lock in someone else from a different game, maybe.
Pickens,
Tyler Boyd.
Pickens, no, like Tyler Boyd's even better.
Do Pickens.
Pickens is cheaper. Let's do Pickens.
Yeah,
Pickens is fun. And if we turn up correlation, it'll guarantee we get someone from the other
Chubb. More Nico, Montgomery, Knox. So it does bring Knox along. That's a pretty interesting way to play it too. Because Knox, Gabe needs home runs. Knox just needs a touchdown. When you bring Diggs along with it, Diggs and Gabe, it's like, my God, I got an 8K wide receiver, a 6K wide receiver, and an 8K quarterback. Like it's pretty thin. It's pretty thin to get all of them there in a tournament.
Right. And Knox at 3,200 is a steal. I think that he, I don't know what keeps him so underrated in terms of the way that these DFS models are built, but he's been. He's one of those guys that has upside on every given game to get 2 touchdowns. I think that I don't know how many of my Allen lineups I'll be fading Diggs necessarily because, I talked about Pitts and how he's just completely ascended to another level over the past month. And Stephon Diggs has been another guy in that realm where, like, I think his last game below a 30% target share was weeks ago. Like, he's just completely elevated his game. So I think that's just makes it tough for me. But I think that, when you are talking about tournaments, like you have to mix in a little bit of lineups without him too.
Yeah, definitely.
Can we just sneak in the next lineup? I want to see a lineup without Montgomery in it. I want to try to keep my food down.
Yeah, no Montgomery. No.
Get Montgomery out as soon as we go there.
Now we get Josh Jacobs. This is fantastic.
Jesus. And do we have any running back that isn't this same plotting?
I mean, that's the thing is, though, when you look at the teams that are winning, these milli makers, I mean, they have gross running backs.
Montgomery and Zeke.
Okay, can you screenshot this? Screenshot this. We're sending this to the engineers. This can never happen again.
The 6th best Allen Gabe team
with a
breakback.
It's actually a fine lineup. It's a totally fine lineup. That's the thing. It's like with best ball. You know this, Eric. Some of these great best ball teams, they have some gross players.
Oh yeah.
I think this could be a good point to segue into the next game, which is the Vikings and the Cowboys, because this lineup picks up Zeke, Dalvin Cook, and Dalton Schultz in this. It keeps it at a single stack with Gabe and Josh Allen, DPJ on the way back. We get our Pickens. Aside from Zeke, I think I like all the pieces in this lineup.
Agreed.
What is Zeke's salary there? 6,000, huh? 6K Zeke.
Well, see, and on this team, something I would do on this team, because you have Nico, I would go to one of the Washington running. So you just use Schultz as my cowboy, right? Schultz and Cook our secondary stack, and then I would take this to. I don't really care about Gibson versus Robinson, but then you can upgrade like the defense or something like that. You know?
No, because we do have salary on the table, but I like that thought process a lot. Like we go to, I think Gibson can catch more passes, full PPR at the end of the day, and then that brings you down to 900 to spare, and you can get the Cowboys defense, which I think is very, very good spot against Kirk Cousins. I think they're gonna terrorize him. So I like
fun little tweaks. Yeah,
like what we were able to do there. Mixon and Chubb.
Do you want to build any Cowboys? You mentioned that segue into that game. Do you want to build any Cowboys teams? Or I'm curious on you guys' take on that, because I can see
Cowboys.
It's easy to see Dak, CD, probably Schultz with Jefferson bring back, right? Easy to see like that lineup like makes itself.
Exactly. I mean, we've talked about this. I mean, you're probably not playing Cousins most weeks, but you're definitely always playing Jefferson, always and forever. Get your Jefferson in there.
Yeah, we need to.
Can we talk about the fact that from after the first drive, Justin Jefferson turns into like Chris Hogan for a couple quarters, and then when they need him again at the end of the game, it's like, oh God, please save us, Justin Jefferson, like catch of the year or whatever.
Man.
Why every second quarter? Why does he never catch a pass? Like he comes out on the first drive.
Right,
it's
the
like
first
boom,
drive that he gets like 50 yards and a touchdown. Yeah.
Like how about we keep throwing? He's pretty good at football. Let's keep throwing it to him. He'll score like he could have 50 fantasy point weeks if they would ever just keep feeding him the ball.
He's not expensive enough.
No.
He's just not expensive enough. Remember, he's not expensive enough. He needs to be more close to 10K. I mean, get people to try to even have it in their head whether there's a decision to make.
And I think that, Dak saves you $2,000 off of Josh Allen, and he's not in this upper echelon of quarterbacks in pricing right now, but I think we know that he's got that upside in him.
Oh, we're playing Dak this week. He's one of our premium quarterbacks to play.
And he has the obvious stacking partner in CD, who has also continued to emerge and finally had his rip the roof off of his ceiling.
Absolutely.
So we talked about bullying the optimizer with Josh Allen, Diggs, and Davis. Now we'll just do it with Jefferson and Lamb.
But this is also the point of the optimizer a little bit, is because you go into the week building how we build on this show, right? We start with the game environment. Well, then you tell the optimizer to be like, look, I want this game. How do I make it? You show me how to make it work, right? We can tweak from there like we were doing, right? Let's tweak off a Zeke on that team or whatever. But it spits out the like, here's how you want Josh Allen stacks. Look at what you got to start looking at, right? You want Dak, Jefferson, CD. Time to start looking at Paris Campbell, time to start looking at Tyler Algier, it's going to tell you what you need to start considering with those teams. And that's what's important.
Yeah. The thing with the point you made, I think is right with David Montgomery, that there's going to be so much AI driven David Montgomery plays out there this week that his ownership is going to be higher than 15%.
Yep.
For sure.
Is there anything else in this game? Are we just sticking to like Dak, CD, Jefferson bringbacks, Schultz? I guess we talked about Schultz.
Yeah, Lineup Genius loves Schultz.
Dak Prescott loves Schultz. I think that's more important than the Lineup Genius loving Schultz.
Yeah, no, I love Cowboy stacks this week, baby. I also love Pollard. I love Pollard for all the same. I'm that guy, man. I can telegraph. You know what I'm doing. Right. I'm doing Hunt. I'm going Pollard. I want the plotter to be active so I can play the better running back at lower ownership.
I think that's true. The only reason I think that like Pollard's price is inevitably going to come down now that Zeke is healthy again and his workload's going to get dialed back. So I think this is, in that sense, probably the toughest week to play Pollard because his price is probably at the highest it'll be all season, assuming, we get maintained health for Zeke, which is not a given, but I think that's the only tricky aspect here. Here in this lineup, we actually are able to afford Dameon Pierce, who I think Pollard is the same price, but I think you got to like the spot for Pierce too.
What do you think about if we want to really go hard at this game and we're going to double stack?
Going hard, baby.
Dak, CD, Schultz. We need the savings. I mean, we all like Nico, right? I don't know about Braxton Berrios. Don't know if I can get that far, but we like
0.1% owned.
We like some of these. God bless it. Week 11. These are like week 18 guys. We already did like Josh Reynolds in week 3. Can we not do Braxton Berrios until we get later into the season? But someone like KJ Osborne, who did get 11 targets last week. They obviously had a little bit of elevated pass volume, blah, blah, blah. But, can you chase something like him? Can we go back to Hawkinson? Maybe bring, Gallup into the conversation. I'm just trying to think of the
definitely playing Hawkinson, bro.
Yeah, I think
the
Hawkinson and Gallup
are cheap,
both,
right? And we need them.
Love Hawkinson this week.
Yeah, I think definitely agree with you. Gallup, Hawkinson are both in play. I have them in my notes here from before the show, and I think the Cowboys pass rush is definitely the scariest thing in terms of the potential for this game, just kind of underperforming. But yeah, like you said, even if the Vikings do get behind, they fed Osborne and Hawkinson last week. I was kind of surprised that the Vikings are actually the underdogs in this game. The Cowboys are favored on the road by 1.5, which I was not expecting to see.
Market is not a believer in the old. I mean, neither am I, to be clear. On the Vikings, yeah. Market's not a believer. What about the running backs? We talked a little bit about Pollard. What about if the pass rush is an issue? What about Dalvin at the optimizer was spitting out some Dalvin. What do you guys think about Dalvin?
Game for Dalvin. Got to play him.
Yeah, for sure. Let me see the Cowboys. They're pretty middle of the pack against the run. They're very good against the pass. Their rush EPA is 21st in the league. So I think they're very much more susceptible to the run than they are to the pass game. I think Dalvin Cook very much in play. He's actually, I'm going to pull up Alexander Madison's snap shares really quick here, but I know that he's actually been kind of getting used less and less, which is encouraging for Dalvin Cook, of course.
Yeah.
You get Madison's snap shares have been below 20% 3 out of the last 4 games. So that's a very big change from when he was, in the 30s, 25, 40 kind of area.
Definitely. Let's hit on 2 more before we get out of here. One that we have to talk about every single week. We can't go. I mean, it's week 11. We can't stop now. But the Lions. Have to talk about secondary stacks with the Lions. Saquon, another pretty awesome spot. The dude had almost 40 carries last week against the Texans. Wandale is questionable. Kenny Golladay is in a coffin somewhere. And so there's not a lot going on the Giants side, and it's the Lions. Meanwhile, on the Lions side, DeAndre Swift had another quote today that was like,
"Oh God,
things are bothering me," or whatever. I forget what he said, but so he's going to be a 25% snap back, which doesn't really make me like Jamal Williams because they're giving work to 3 other total running backs besides him on the team. But it does open up Shocky Amon-Ra St. Brown again, and I get it on both sides of this game. There's some pretty appealing plays, probably more so for some secondary stacks. I guess I could be talked into some Daniel Jones, but it's just a Lions game again that is pretty appealing.
Mm-hmm. I think that Darius Slayton is also kind of like the one Giants wide receiver. And yeah, I saw this in the comments too, but I already had his player page pulled up here. He's projected below 10% ownership. He's been leading the team in targets and routes the last few weeks. I think that he's the way to go if you want to skinny stack this game in a way that's going to be less chalky than Amon-Ra and Saquon.
Yeah. Amon Chalk St. Brown. Stacked with Slayton.
The Chalk God. That's his
is
new
interesting.
Name. Not the Sun God, the Chalk God.
Exactly. It is that's an interesting way to go. I like it. I like it a lot. Of course, Saquon. Right? Of course, Saquon. Yeah, I'd like. Can we? You know what a great lineup to play is? Would be Josh Allen with Saquon and Dalvin Cook with Justin Jefferson and Diggs, and then but don't forget about
you just have to leave the rest of your roster.
Don't forget
empty.
about Lamb.
Yeah.
And then you can also play Hawkinson. So, but you save salaries to flex Donovan Peoples-Jones. I think that's a great lineup to play.
Yeah, let me know where.
You might be at about 65,000 in salary.
I'm down for that lineup if you can figure out. Send it to me. Yeah. That's better than some of the trash I've been playing for the last
It's a great lineup.
for the last few weeks. What about, here we go. So Daniel Bellinger is still out. I'm just trying to think about this game, and what if the Giants need to throw the Lions have a capable offense. This isn't like some everybody views most Lions games like, oh, they're going to get crushed, and then Amon-Ra is going to catch a bunch of passes. But like, what if the Lions score? Right? The Giants are not some juggernaut. They kind of barely beat the Texans last week. What if it flips? Like, are there any other Giants besides Slayton that are of interest? Because I mean, no, they really don't have anybody in the past. Somebody's got to do something, right? Isaiah Hodgins. Is there anything here that is kind of under the radar?
You are essentially explaining why you need to be lower than consensus on exposure to this game. You understand what you're doing?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You're essentially explaining why this game isn't as cool as it seems. It seems kind of a cool game. Like, oh my God, St. Brown Barkley, but that's pretty you're devoting a lot of salary to a pretty shitty game that has a lowish total. And the only reason the total's that high is because of the Lions, but it's based on the Lions what they were doing a month ago. Right?
Yeah, with Hawkinson and Swift, and
I'm not co-signing much here. I know you're going to play some Barkley for sure. Yes, and Slayton's a fun salary saver. We've got a bunch of those guys, a bunch of those Nico Collins types. I mean, I would rather play Slayton over Nico Collins.
Yeah, agreed.
Wouldn't you? He's a little more expensive.
Yeah,
but
$900 different.
Right. That's the thing with Collins is he's much cheaper. Paris Campbell is much cheaper. So what is Slayton's ownership? I haven't checked. It can't be that high if he's 5K.
Yeah, I see 8% on
DraftKings. That's a nice
Fanduel.
thing. That's the nice thing about playing these guys at 5K that have the sort of tarnished brands. Is you can get him at a lower, at least outside the top 10, where he's in a great spot. If there's one guy besides Barkley that's in a great spot in this game, it's him for sure. I'm worried about the Lions doing anything. It's at New York. It's so gross. Even their field is terrible. Like, it's just everything. It's so bad. And they're going to be playing guys that have no business being on NFL fields. Is David Sills going to be out there?
No, why do you hate David Sills and Isaiah Hodgins and Tom Kennedy and Brock Wright? What's your problem with
Kennedy is going to be out there. Ask yourself how these guys actually make big plays in games that get you from the 50 to the 35, from the 35 to the 20, and then you got to score a touchdown against NFL caliber defenses.
Daniel Jones naked bootleg for 80 yards, Matt.
There's also a probability that they fixate 100% of the defense's attention on Barkley and make Barkley's life miserable and him inefficient this week. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. I mean, that's the thing. Like, if I had to say which game, they're thinking about like, what is football, right? In and of itself, what is an offense, right? It's just hard for me to understand how this game, there's more points implied for both teams, right? The total than Bengals-Steelers. It's just one of those things that I know the pace of play with the Lions. I get all that. It's just, I don't care how fast you play. If no one can do anything, you still have to punt.
Yeah, that is true. I think as you talked that through, it did make me think, if I were God, we haven't really landed on that many stacks, and we're going to keep talking about these secondary stacks. But
we have one more in the can, assuming
yes,
that the Eagles receivers are healthy.
But I think to kind of negate what you were talking about, if I wanted to play some of this game, because I do like Slayton and Amon-Ra and Saquon and whatever, but I think that that Slayton Amon-Ra pairing would be the one where it's like Slayton can get home on the big play, right? And Amon-Ra can get home on a big play, but then if he gets pushed by the Slayton big play, right? It's kind of like what we always talk about with like Tyreek Hill games.
That's something. That's how you can get to a 40. I mean, they're going to really struggle to score 44 points in this game.
Yeah,
if they score 44 points, that's technically going under. So, but yes, 15 targets for Amon-Ra St. Brown, very much in play. Target leader for the week. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yep, I agree.
So play him, please. He's really good, and he's finally proven he's healthy. I don't even think he was getting the targets a few weeks in a row without the big plays. Now he's fine. I mean, this is so predictable with these guys coming off these high ankle sprains. It's like you could just close your eyes and know what their game logs are going to look like. And the next thing you're going to see from Amon-Ra is the 15 target game.
Yeah. I just pulled up
Go ahead, Dario.
I just pulled up the Giants games this year. They've gone under this total of 45 in 8 out of their 9 games this season.
God bless it.
How do I drop this mic? It's mounted. How do I drop it?
All right, enough of this stupid Giants game. Let's talk about a good offense. The Eagles.
Oh, thank God.
Eagles are a lot more fun offense, and you want to talk about a team that I feel pretty confident in a stack where the ball is going, where the upside is. It's just, can you guys tell me if the Colts are going to push this Jalen Hurts? Like, this is the same wash, rinse, repeat for 11 weeks about the Eagles, but now Dallas Goedert is out, which makes it's kind of fascinating because there are going to be, as you saw when we ran through the optimizer, some possible punt plays with the Grant Calcaterra. But
and Quez Watkins
and Quez, it opens up some punts, but it also opens up more ceiling for the two.
It's
superstars.
I mean, listen. If you're listening, Dallas, you're great. I really enjoy watching you play. You're an amazing player. I have so much of you in Dynasty. I was a huge believer. It was a weird thing where he had one of the great legendary individual days at the Senior Bowl. Before I think he broke his hand at the scene, something happened. Like, he didn't participate in the combine. Like, he was hurt because of the Senior Bowl. It was a shoulder, broke his shoulder, something, collarbone, something happened. But the Tuesday, the first day of practice at the Senior Bowl, goes down as the legendary Dallas Goedert day, where it was the greatest day against, whatever high-level college competition anyone's ever seen at the Senior Bowl. Better than even Adam Troutman. Right? So anyway, love this guy. Legend. But it is maybe the most convenient injury I've ever seen. In that really just solidifies the target share for Brown and Smith. They no longer are going to be as volatile. They're going to smooth out their production week to week and increase their ceiling. And you bring in Calcaterra cheap, and you bring in Quez Watkins. It's it's quite the boon.
Yeah, I mean, would anyone be surprised if they turned into Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle 2.0?
No, not at all. Not in the least. Calcaterra is your Gesicki. Quez is your Trent Sherfield with a little more juice. Seems pretty logical to me. And
I mean, that's your punt play wide receiver this week.
So how do you go about stacking this game, or are we not worried about the Colts? How do you kind of view this one? Because old Jeff Saturday did come in. Shout out to him, by the way, and shout out to everyone for letting us get Jonathan Taylor at super low ownership. That was really fun last week. But that's the way to it. Can you play JT as the bring back? Because it's a weird dynamic similar to the Bills. If I want to attack the Eagles, they're showing some being quite susceptible on the ground. But like from a game stack perspective, it's hard to wrap your brain around, right? A Chubb or a JT as a bringback or something. Can we play JT, or is it Pittman or Paris Campbell? Or what do you guys think about the Colts?
I think Paris Campbell is definitely the budget bring back. He's been absolutely crushing it. If you look at his last games with Matt Ryan, so you take out the two like Sam Ehlinger starts, and Paris Campbell's been just completely on fire. So, and he's only I think 4,300 on DraftKings. I'm surprised his ownership's only at 5%. I mean, the Eagles have a very good defense, but Paris Campbell's also not exactly the guy that you're building your defensive game plan around. So I think he'll still be able to get his targets.
Yeah, the lineup genius like Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman's ownership is at a place where, again, I'm always pleasantly surprised with how smart fantasy gamers are, not overreacting to certain things like CB wide receiver matchups. So it makes sense. Again, just as a person who understands how football works, when you remove the 6'6", 250-pound tackle from the middle of your defense and put him on IR and Jordan Davis. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot easier to run on that team.
But they signed Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph. They can stop the run 5 years ago.
Yeah, so Jonathan Taylor, love that as the potential run back. So yeah.
So I've got Pittman, the numbers in
Campbell.
front of me.
I mean, this is such a great game. Has all the salary savers, all the target consolidation you're looking for. I mean, this is a peach of a game.
Mm-hmm. So I pulled up the game log for Paris Campbell, excluding the two Sam Ehlinger starts, which, I mean, curse you, Jim Irsay, for making that happen. But in these last 3 games with Matt Ryan as his quarterback, he's had 32 targets in those 3 games. So
let's go.
Paris Campbell is feasting right now.
Goodbye, Alec Pierce. Never knew you. And yeah, he's gone. I mean, Quez Watkins is a fringe play. So number 3 receivers are not a factor. Tight ends are not a factor. This is what we want. There's no confusion. It's so easy. You've got Campbell, you've got Pittman, you've got Brown, you've got Smith, and you've also got 2 running backs. You've got an Eagles defense that's a lot softer up the middle, and you've also got you can also play Miles Sanders. I don't like Miles Sanders as much because it's a road game, but he's not a big time pass catcher, so that's what I'd like to see more from like a road running back. But a lot of plays and Hurts, man.
The Colts defense is 3rd best at stopping the run in EPA per play, and they're pretty league average against the pass. They're 12th in dropback EPA per play. So I think that's another pretty strong case against Miles Sanders this week in particular.
I don't think we're playing much Miles Sanders, but I'm just saying, like, he's going to leak into some lineups and it's going to be absolutely fine.
Yeah, I think he's like if it falls into a few of your lineups, I think it's I mean, matchup, I agree. I'm very, very much so more on the Eagles passing game here. But like, if you ever just say in a game where the Eagles could and probably should absolutely dominate, that you're just like, I have an Eagle on that team and you don't really care which one it is. Like, I think getting some of those guys in there is totally fine.
I'm wrong. What am I talking about? Miles Sanders has 2 targets the last 4 games. I was not aware of that.
You need 100 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Holy shit.
But Miles Sanders versus David Montgomery has chalk Miles Sanders at 2%. That's all.
I thought the case for Montgomery was that he has 5 catches in him.
He does, but the team only throws 20 times. So
Jesus Christ, though. Miles Sanders is. What do you think? I think I take everything back. I'm like, I was like, I'm all in on everyone getting touches in this game, and now I'm like, well, I didn't realize Miles Sanders was such a 0 in the passing game recently. Holy.
Who I think may not be a 0 in the passing game. I know we already kind of talked about him, but I just wanted to start to put a bow on it with this game. JT, I want you guys' take on. We didn't see big pass game. They were ahead, right, and pounding the rock, right, doing all. But how quickly people are going to forget that not only is this a good matchup for JT on the ground, right, and the way the Colts. Nyheim Hines is gone. Deion Jackson is there.
Baby.
You'll never convince me that Deion Jackson is going to step into the Nyheim Hines role. I think Jeff Saturday is probably like, this is JT's show. And even if they fall behind, I think you could get 7, 8.
It's a home game.
Right. I
think there's a very straightforward case that JT's a better play this week than Saquon.
I think it's certainly with ownership.
Without factoring in ownership, just factoring in salary and potential upside given his usage. There's going to be more. I can't believe it. Like the fact that there's only one more point that's supposed to be scored in this game versus that game, Giants-Lions. That's shocking to me. That's like a glitch.
Yeah, and Deion Jackson has been limited in practice this week, so he's probably trending in the right direction. But I think you're right. He's not Nyheim Hines. He never will be. And then the pace of play splits for the Colts when they were playing Ellinger versus when Matt Ryan is their quarterback are very significant. They're running a lot more plays. They're throwing a lot more passes. Like it's just very easy to see how they project for more pass volume. And even at something like a 9, 10, 11% target share for JT, that could turn into 5 or 6 targets easily.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Really like JT again, and I don't think people are going to play him. He's like, we talked about like George Pickens, where it was like, okay, we just haven't seen what we thought we were going to see from this guy all year. That's what happened with JT.
We got what we wanted last week. We're done with
last week. Yep. Yeah. And
you did your job, JT. You did your job for us last week. Okay. Goodbye. Never mind that you were like the number 1 overall pick in fantasy all summer.
Yeah, he's pretty good at football. But let's wrap with what we usually wrap with, and you got to give this week is tough. I feel like most of the time I can almost guess what I think you guys are going to say. I really don't have any idea. Also because there was some cold water and hot water being thrown and all sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah,
Dario, what's your conviction take of the week?
Ooh, you said it is a tough week. I think that for me, like maybe I don't know, Matt. Do you have anything? I'm like,
no. I almost said play Miles Sanders. I had no idea anyone was playing T. Higgins. I clearly, again, no show prep, unprepared. It's almost like I had a flat tire today.
Yeah, I think that
didn't get a chance to really dig in. A little unprofessional. But I did have a thought about the overall, which actually aligns exactly with this whole what happened, which is just go have fun this week. Just have fun. Go. Just play players we like. Just play Paris Campbell and DPJ and Pickens and just have fun with it. Go have fun. Quez Watkins is fun, right? That's a fun play for a punt play, right? That's what you got to do this week is just go have fun.
Yeah, I think in these last 5 minutes, I've been talked pretty heavily into just double stack Hurts again. The upside is going to be there for AJ Brown and for Devontae Smith, and there's so many options to like.
Eagles
on the way
are
back
fun.
The Colts.
Cowboys are fun. Bills are fun. It's all fun, man. The Bengals are fun. Bengals Steelers skinny stacks are fun. These are all fun stuff.
I'm going to piggyback on both of those. And the funness is funny, but also when you kind of do take a step back and you say, Dario and none of us could come up with a thing where you're like, that's the thing this week, right? And when we went through all those lineups with the optimizer and looked at, and every time the running backs came up, we were like, ugh. So everybody's going to have this same approach. Everybody's going to have these gross running backs. We're going to be jamming, Saquon in with all the same, everybody's going to play whatever. Paris Campbell or whoever, cheap tight ends to get this. Play the fun guys, George Pickens, Jonathan Taylor, Devonta Smith, Kyle Pitts. Play
green light to go have fun with all these guys, all these rookies we loved or second-year players we thought were big breakouts. This also feels like the week that we're finally going to get our We're finally going to get our delayed breakouts for some guys we really love. Don't forget about the sexy receivers, the sexy tight ends we love. Play them. Go have fun. Jonathan Taylor, like, yeah, Cowboys.
I really do think, though, like legit being serious, the edge in these weeks when everybody's jamming David Montgomery and Zeke's getting spit into the optimizer and Mixon and like, it's gross, right? Then the actual edge is being like, look, I know Pickens hasn't broke out yet, but I also know that it's coming. Play that dude. Kyle Pitts hasn't broke out yet. Play that dude, right? T. Higgins hasn't done it yet without Jamar Chase. Play T, but it's happened. It's going to happen. Play those guys because the rest of the field is just for whatever reason not getting to them. I really believe that that's the edge. You can take that however you want it. That could be the Cowboys, that could be the Eagles, that could be the Bengals, right? That could be a lot of different guys. But I think that's when we get to Sunday, once the ownership settles in, that's where you want to take your tournament teams. All right, we're gonna get out of here. Thanks for hanging out with us. That was a lot of fun. I feel a lot better about this slate now than I did before we started. Hopefully Matt's car can survive. We'll see how it goes next week, and we'll get a proper update, and maybe he'll learn how to change a tire between now and then. But for Sosa and for the three of us, we'll see you guys in week 12.